Hey, what's up guys? Coach Madden, official trainer, YouGoProBaseball.com, and welcome to the first episode of Product Review Wednesdays. I got something great for you today. In fact, when it comes to talking about hitting, this is one of the things that gets left out the most. And as far as training goes, we don't get enough of this in our swing, and that is practicing our hip rotation or working our hips into our swing. A lot of players aren't able to get the most out of their hips. Now we have leg drive trainers, we've got things that train our arms and our upper body, but there hasn't been anything to hit the market that I've seen at least that really focuses on training the hips within a swing. Until I got the hip striker. This is the hip striker right here. It's a training tool that helps hitters and even pitchers, I'm gonna get into a little bit later in this video, to work on their hip rotation, which again is a very underutilized part of the swing, especially with young hitters. So the hip striker basically goes around your waist. You're gonna attach it to your waist. If you're a right-handed hitter, obviously it's gonna go on the right side of your hip. If you're a lefty, it's gonna go on the left side of your hip. You're just gonna find that perfect fit, make it snug, and then you're ready to go. Basically, all you're gonna do with this tool is work on your swing. So it comes with these soft balls here, but you don't need to necessarily use these balls. You could use wiffle balls or the mini wiffle balls or some tennis balls or something of that sort. But these balls are great because of the weight that you're using against the hip striker here. And all you're really doing is working on taking your hips and getting them moving forward, which a lot of guys don't do. I see a lot of hitters when they hit and their back foot is kind of staying just like this and they don't get their full hip rotation. They're losing a lot of energy, they're losing a lot of power. But with 20 to 30 swings with the hip striker, they're gonna be able to feel, not only feel, but see. Like if I go like this and I'm not getting my hips all the way in, I can tell the hip striker is way back here. But if I'm turning and using my hips correctly, this thing is gonna be perpendicular to the line of the pitch, which is what we need in our hips, right? Now, before we get into some of the ways you can use this, I kind of want to just go over and talk about the product. It's basically a plastic piece that straps around your waist, definitely long enough to fit any size player. You can shorten it if you need to. You can also cut the end of this. I don't know if you noticed it had a little bit longer of an end. You can just cut this, if it's hanging out too long. You saw I just tucked it into my pocket if you're gonna use this with players of different sizes. So that's not a big deal at all. And it seems very durable, like it's got some flex to it, but definitely not gonna crack in my hands by bending it. Definitely a good piece of plastic right here. All right, so let's strap this thing on again and get some work with it. Very easy to put on. Again, you can see, not too hard. If you know how to put a belt on, you'll be all right. You just make it nice and snug. Then again, you can either cut this excess piece or like I'm doing, just tuck it in your pocket in case you got players of different sizes that you're gonna be using with. So the first thing you can do with the hip striker is gonna be to take dry swings, okay? You can do this with or without a bat if you want, and really just focusing on the hip. And you really wanna pay attention to that hip and where the hip striker is within your swing. So you wanna get into that nice athletic position like you're hitting, and then you're really gonna focus on driving that hip forward. Again, what you wanna pay attention to is where this hip striker ends up, because that's gonna tell you visibly if you're getting your hips into the swing, okay? You could also check out your back foot to see where you are. Obviously, if you're back with this back foot and not fully rotated, look what happened to the hip striker. It automatically tells me that I did not get enough hips into the swing. So the dry swings are great. Going through 15, 20, 30 dry swings where I'm really trying to bring that hip all the way through and get that energy from the ground up into my hips so then I can transfer it through my arms. Now, I don't want you to get me wrong here. I don't want you to think that it's all about just exploding the hips right here, because if that's the case, you would be flying open and everything would be coming out. And you're gonna be hitting weak ground balls to the pull side because all your energy is going this way and your arms are gonna go out and around. So that's not the point of this tool or this drill. The point of it is actually to have hip-eye coordination. We're actually gonna do a drill where you can toss these balls from the front. And this is a great drill because you have to have that timing when you're turning the hip. So it's not just about exploding the hip this way, because if we do that all day long, we might get into the routine of just flying open. But when we add in this drill where our partner throws the ball, now we actually have to time our energy and have that hip to eye coordination. Okay, you guys all heard hand-eye coordination. This is hip to eye coordination now, and add in that timing aspect, which is so important when it comes to hitting, obviously. So all you're gonna do is get set up. You're gonna have a partner out in front, and then you're just gonna try to hit that ball with the hip striker. It's pretty hard at first, but after a few times, you'll make contact. Again, you're not trying to kill this ball. I'm not trying to hit this ball over the fence with my hip. It's impossible, first of all. I'm just trying to make contact and make sure I'm getting the full rotation of my hips to make contact with that ball. So another great drill you can do with the hip striker, or use to train with the hip striker, is gonna be hitting the hip striker balls off of a tee. And we can actually work middle, inside, and away pitches off of the tee here, but they have to be respective to where you're trying to hit that ball. For example, the tee right here is now, if I was hitting with a bat, would be an inside pitch. But since I'm hitting with the hip striker here, this is actually a middle pitch, because where I'm making contact with this is gonna be up the middle here. So it has to be respective. So to work on an inside pitch with the hip striker, it would be actually even more in. An outside pitch would be slightly back and slightly more outside. Now, when we're working on this, you have to understand where your hips are gonna be in these swings. On an outside pitch, my hips aren't gonna be as fully turned as they would for an inside pitch. So you have to see the difference and understand the difference of how much your hips are gonna be turning when you're working on certain pitches, because that's how it is when you're hitting with a bat, right? An inside pitch, you're gonna have more hip rotation. Outside pitch, you're gonna have a little bit less, because you're trying to go with that ball, right? As a pitch down the middle, it'll be on the inside part of the plate again, because that's how we're working with the hip striker. And I'm just gonna get set up, and I'm trying to hit this ball straight up the middle. Accomplished my goal. Now, if I wanted to work on outside, I pull it back a little bit and slightly outside, and now I'm trying to hit this ball slightly opposite field. Better. Now I'm gonna try an inside pitch, which is actually more inside than an actual inside pitch. Good. So you can see using the hip striker off a tee is a great way to really work on your hip rotation, but not over rotating the hips, because we don't just want to use this tool to work on exploding the hips. We got to have that coordination, that timing with the hips. The hips is not just about exploding them, it's about becoming a better hitter. And this tool I really love, because this is the only tool out there that I've seen that can help you with this, and it does a great job of this. To me, when I'm swinging it, it feels like I can feel and see where my hips are at. So I know if I didn't get full extension here, I'm gonna know this thing is way back. I'm not even gonna be able to hit this ball off the tee if I don't get the right hip rotation. Now, another great way to understand how the hips work with the hip striker is to grab a bat and actually take swings with it. The hip striker is gonna lead the way a little bit. Your bat's gonna be lagging behind, but you wanna get that understanding of how they work together and how it feels together. So it's a little bit tough, because normally you're looking at a ball coming in and trying to hit it here, but now we're gonna be focusing on hitting it with the hip striker. So it's a little tough at first, but with some practice, you're gonna be able to understand what your hips are doing and be able to feel a lot better in regards to how it works with your upper body and lower body all together within the swing. So obviously you're not trying to hit the ball with a bat. I'm swinging over the ball. I'm just imagining a ball up here, but I'm really trying to get the correct hip rotation and hit that ball with my hips here. Like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, the hip striker is also great for pitching. You guys know I'm a pitching guy. I was a pitcher, but hitting and pitching are very similar. And the hips in pitching or throwing in general is very, very important to throw, to transfer your energy the correct way. It's just like hitting. We want to create that energy from the ground, but then it moves up our body, up our kinetic chain into our hips. And we've got to learn how to rotate those hips and keep that energy transferring through the release point, or in hitting, through our hands when we hit. So this is like the connection right here. And if we don't get this part right, we're losing so much. So whether it goes for hitting or pitching, this is a huge, huge aspect of it. And this tool helps us train that way. For pitching, it's more of a visual thing. You could work on the same drills with the partner throwing them or whatever. But for me, I think just visually when you're pitching, to have this is a great tool, because now I can tell if my hips are really rotating all the way through, okay? If I'm kind of dragging back here, even if I stopped, like when I got to my foot plant, I can see that my hips are dragging right here. I don't have full rotation. Right here in pitching, I want to be fully forward with my hips and my shoulders want to be back. It's called hip to shoulder separation in pitching. And they did a study that showed that 80% of pitching velocity comes from hip to shoulder separation. So if you can have good hip to shoulder separation, you're going to have good pitching velocity. So how do you work on that? You just use the hip striker, and visually it'll tell you if your hips are fully open at the time of your front foot strike. And if your shoulders are in the correct position, then you know you've got enough hip to shoulder separation. Before I had this tool, there was no way to look at it besides slow-mo video, and even then I would kind of have to guess where the player's hips were. Now with this attached, especially with slow-mo video added, now I can tell exactly how far their hips are, because with just slow-mo video, this and this look very similar. But now with the hip striker on it, I can see a big difference from the side when I'm taking slow-mo video. So I really love this tool for hitting and for pitching or throwing in general. Overall, I really love this product because it helps promote proper hip rotation in the swing, which is such an undervalued, undertrained part of the swing, especially in young hitters. It's a fun way to train. You can train inside or outside. You can use it for practice or even on the on-deck circle before you go up to bat. It's a great way to, get ready for that at bat you're going to be taking. If you do 20 to 30 hip strikes, you're going to see immediate results. Some things to remember is you're trying to learn to coordinate the movement of hitting with your hips. It's not about just exploding the hips and opening them up. You're coordinating the movement, the timing. And something that I failed to mention earlier in the video is the hip striker is a great way to train a switch hitter, a guy who is naturally righty and trying to work on lefty but doesn't have that natural hip movement that he does on the right side, or vice versa. It's a really great way to work on switch hitting. Guys, if you see the value in the hip striker like I do, you can order them on hipstriker.com. In fact, the guys at Hip Striker were kind enough to let me give away one of these here in this video, as well as a few more. I'm not gonna do that in this video, so you gotta make sure you go follow Hip Striker on all the social media outlets, and then also check me out on Instagram and Snapchat and some of the other YouTube videos, because I'm gonna give a few of these away elsewhere. But to win this one, what you have to do is leave a comment below. You have to be subscribed to me. You also have to be subscribed to the Hip Striker YouTube channel. That's the first thing. Second thing is you gotta leave a comment below on this video and tell me what your problem is when it comes to your hips and what you're doing to work on them. How long have you been struggling with this problem? What are you doing to try to fix this problem? And how could the Hip Striker help you, okay? We're gonna get together, we're gonna pick the best comment, and out of that best comment, you're gonna win a Hip Striker. It comes with 3 of the foam balls, and then you can do some of these drills to really help fix that problem that you're having in your hips, because I'm telling you guys, this tool is so valuable for anyone who is lacking in their hips, whether it comes to their swing or their throwing, because there's really nothing out there like this that can help with that problem.